Well, good morning, morena, everybody. I'll call the meeting to order. Welcome to today's November council meeting. You've all got your agendas in front of you, except for me, but Dale Marie, could I invite you to open us this morning with a few words? Thank you.
Tēnā tātou e te whare. I'm going to do the sunshine one, so that I can try and invoke the sunshine. Tākari mai te ata, ura te ata, kāke te ata, uru mai te ao. Uru mai te ao o te tangata, kia ana rerenga, ki tōna kaua, tēnei te ao. He ao mārama, I rongo whakairia, hui e, tai ki e. So it's asking us to bring the sun for us to have the energy to go forth with what we're doing today. Tēnā tātou.
Kia ora, thank you for that. Thank you very, very much. Right, moving on then. A few opening comments from me. Obviously, it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge that we now finally have a government. And I just want to acknowledge and congratulate Louise Upston on her appointment, I can't read, as Minister of Social Development, Employment, Child Poverty Reduction and the Community and Voluntary Sector. And I really look forward to working with her as a council and continuing our ongoing work for the betterment of our communities together. Louise has always had a reasonably open door policy with us, so I expect that will continue. Now, it's kind of, I suppose, only fitting that she attended the Celebrating Waipa function last week that we held. And like us all, she was surrounded by so many community-minded people, and that really are the ones that are the fibrous pieces of our community that keep us all bound together. So, but I just want to extend a note of thanks to you all for attending and making the event a success it was. Yet again, the Te Mutu Kapahaka intermediate crew stole the show. Very hard act to follow. So it was a really great night. So thank you. And just looking through a few other things here. Obviously, it's been a busy month upon my return from being overseas, including hosting together with the Cambridge Community Board 2 delegations, one from Likanwa and another from Bohoro. So just extend my note of thanks to the Community Board for the work, in particular Lana Mackay. It's a big job hosting people from overseas, making sure you get them all in the right place at the right time and being entertained. And so, my hats off to Alana and her crew and the whole of the community board for that undertaking, and in particular for the groups of people who offered to homestay the delegates. It was very generous. Both delegations came off with great excitement, fun, I think. Also, just before we move on, just want to make a couple of little notes of recognition to Central Kids Kindergarten, Treadlight, My Mortgage and MS Civil Construction. All were finalists in the Waikato Business Awards last week. Really great success, in particular by Central Kids. They won the For Purpose and then the People's Choice category. I'm slightly biased because my two younger children went through Hazelmere Kindergarten with Central Kids. It's gorgeous place, gorgeous women, great organisation. So look, just really neat to see Waipa businesses actually to the forefront in those awards. It's great stuff indeed. So it's been a pretty busy month for us all. Anyway, we shall move on, and I don't have any apologies as we are all here today, which is fantastic. Moving then to the disclosures of members' interests. Not aware of there being any. Late items, I don't believe there are any either. Confirmation of the order of the meeting. I'm not aware of there being a need for any changes, so I'm happy to move. Lou will second that for me. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Moving then to the confirmation of the minutes. The 31st of October, obviously I wasn't here, so I won't take any part in moving those. But I believe they've been circulated, and there's now a recommendation there that they are a true and correct record of that meeting. You're happy to move that for us, Claire, and Liz will second that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Right, moving on to tab 7 of our agenda then, which is documents signed under seal. Gary.
Thank you, Worship. So just 2 warrants for trade waste officers, which is the bylaw, and the bylaws adopted under local government. So simply staff warrants, Your Worship.
Pretty straightforward there. Mike Pettit and Bruce Thomas will second that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Great. Next item on our agenda this morning is the joint Waikato Iwi Chairs and Mayors Forum, which contains the draft Waikato position statement on water services. Good morning, Dawn.
Kia ora koutou. Through your worship, the report this morning is, the purpose of this report is to seek ratification, particularly of section 6 of the draft position statement on the delivery of water services in the Waikato. It's been prepared by the joint forum of the mayors and chairs across the Waikato. The draft position statement was seen as stage 1 of a piece of work, really reevaluating what's required and investigating future water service delivery mechanisms that are appropriate for our region, given the government announcement in terms of repealing the current legislation. Stage 2 was then proposed as a business case or financial case to assess what vehicle was most appropriate to deliver that significant investment that's needed in water services delivery, renewals and asset maintenance activities across the region, and then further enhance that preferred option to achieve the other stated objectives within the position statement. I understand that there was a joint meeting of the Waikato Chairs and Mayors held yesterday, and preliminary feedback was there was a level of support that stage 2 of that work, the financial or the business case, becomes a concurrent work stream rather than being a gateway. And so my report's also sort of seeking well, to note that that piece of work is something that Waipā is looking to participate in concurrently with the other work. I think that's sort of a summary. Of the rest of the report I'll take as read, but welcome any questions or queries on what is within the report.
Thanks very much, Dawn. Has that report there and the attachments. Does anybody have a question or comment they wish to make in respect of this? Obviously, as Dawn mentioned, a further mayoral forum and joint gathering was held yesterday. Unfortunately, I was unable to attend the joint gathering, but Gary did. So Gary, are you able to give us just a brief outline of what was the outcome of those discussions, please?
Thank you, Worship. So the mayors and chairs were keen to proceed with the first stage of work, that is to see if financially there's a case for an entity with scale to deliver 2 waters, not 3 at the moment. A third water that is stormwater, might come on at a later stage if the case for that is proven. In relation to the position statement, clearly the position of iwi is outlined, the position of councils is outlined. And the things that the mayors and chairs could agree on is in section 6 of the joint position statement. So critically, you're not being asked to confirm the iwi position, more likely the council position, which is ours. And then, of course, are you happy that those points at section 6 are agreed? Now, I just point out that when we looked at a 3 waters entity all those years ago, probably 6 years or so ago, the case for scale that was involving Waikato District, Hamilton and Waipā was proven on paper. But then we had the report from Peter Winder that talked about, but the devil's in the detail. What does the shareholding look like? How will the votes be spread? Should we look for price harmonisation? All of those things took a great deal of time and effort for us to work through. So the first gateway is there a case for an amalgamated entity? Yes or no? And then there's a significant piece of work that we need to embark on critically. We learned a lot the last time we did this, so we've shared that information with the other partners so that work isn't wasted. But critically, what you're being asked to consider is whether Mayor Susan, because this is a joint mayors and chair statement, should sign section 6. And from where I sit, it's hard to argue any of those points from 6.1 A to E.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Marcus, did you have your hand up?
I don't agree with signing any of this at this particular point in time until we actually have a statement from the newly formed government about what is happening with like Waters and RMA and all the other things that they are bundling up, because I mean, to me, we just don't know what the direction and steer is going to be. And until we actually have some comment from the ministers about what our future is going to be, then I think we need to look at it. But I think it'd be premature to do anything with Waters and RMA related bits for the moment.
Thanks, Marcus. Roger, then Claire.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I acknowledge Gary's statement that the idea is that we're only looking at that last section of the report. Can I ask you, Gary, were there any indications at that meeting of some of the authorities and councils not signing up to it? I had heard that Hamilton was possibly against signing up to that.
There was a lot of discussion, along the lines that Marcus has outlined. And on that point, the discussion was essentially circled around the issue of, so regardless of whether there's a change in legislation, does Scale still deliver benefits in terms of the Two Waters entity? And so that's what the business case is designed to look at. In relation to whether other authorities will sign this memorandum of understanding, no clear steer was given on that. There are obviously concerns around co-governance and what that might look like, but of course this document is silent on that. And the point I would make there is that once we proved the business case last time, it took probably 18 months for us to sit down and talk about the shareholding, who's represented, who gets how many votes, what does iwi input into that company. So critically, Roger, some entities would decide that this is a matter for the mayor or the chair to make a decision on, and other mayors or chairs would revert back to their councils for this sort of guidance. I think we're the first cab off the rank.
Okay. I must admit, in some of the prior sections.
Me. Oh, sorry.
I mean, there's some general comments in there, and one of them, which I really have a problem with, is the challenges identified in this section state that the Waikato already has one of the highest lengths of water services networks assessed to be in poor to very poor condition. That's a blanket statement, it's covering all, and yet we as an entity don't fully sit in that definition of being poor to very poor. Through the years of good management, then we've maintained a certain standard, and I just have concern that if we go down this track, then we as an authority and our ratepayers are going to have to meet the cost of bringing those poor services up to scratch. And I'm just concerned about, if they have an equity of costing system around a larger entity, that some of those costs will fall onto us. And the other thing I'm concerned about is the fact that we in Waipa have got a policy of growth pays for growth. And that's the installation and costing of the supply of water services to Waters, if this is what we're talking about. And that, to me, is a good, logical funding base. But not every entity in the region has got that kind of funding policy. And I would have a worry that we would lose that, that management of our growth, and it would fall into a pot where others would push for their priorities rather than us being the masters of our own destiny. I do agree with possibly we need to move it off our balance sheet, but I would prefer to see a smaller CCO that we've got more control over and control of our destiny and growth.
So Roger, absolutely. You're the councillor charged with making decisions in the best interest of your ratepayers. And so this business case is designed to identify whether there are advantages in going into a bigger entity or not. Clearly, if there were no advantages to Waipa ratepayers, you wouldn't enter into it.
That means we will still have the right not to go forward with any suggestion. Well, if that's the case, I'm happy for it to go ahead on an exploratory basis to determine whether a larger entity does have value to our ratepayers.
Thank you, Roger. Claire, I think, then Lou, then Mike.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I'm not in support of signing this to take it forward. I mean, I'm really concerned as exactly what Marcus said. It's too early. We should wait and see what the new government is going to give by way of direction in this space. I mean, we already know that they want to put a stop or roll back the water reforms as they are, but I think that they might give a bit more indication of what they are looking for soon, and in a way, by launching into a business case now, yeah, it might be a waste of money and waste of time. Basically, they did signal in the lead up to the election that they are interested in an infrastructure fund, and that could be of benefit. So I'd be quite keen to know what that looks like before we commit to anything. But I'm also pretty sceptical about the benefits of scale. I mean, the Cranley report identified, yeah, a reasonable quantum. It focused on capital cost savings. Okay, but we've also got to be mindful of operational costs. And as an example, we've just had the detailed business case for the sub-regional wastewater treatment plant, okay, I suppose plan. And even though the capital looked good, it was the cost of pumping, yeah, the conveyance, so that operational side of running a plant in concert with other plants. And that was going to cost $76 million more. Okay, so yeah, I do want to be very careful about what benefits there would be. I'm also concerned that if we do commit to this line of work, that we already know that other councils are really keen on an off-balance sheet solution. So I'm, especially the larger players, so I'm thinking they're going to look at that, whereas I don't agree that an off-balance sheet solution is needed for Waipa from the information that I've seen. So I just think there's going to be work done on a model that we already know isn't one that Waipa needs to buy into. I suspect finance is going to be higher for a CCO because it's going to have a higher risk profile than council. Yeah, so that's another mark against a standalone entity. We do have questions about the pressures of growth and whether priority would be given to Waipa compared to Hamilton. And so I think that I've been really proud of the planning culture and the integrated, I suppose, the way those services have been integrated to drive the lowest, you know, the most efficient way of investing in infrastructure. And if that system is going to be stymied because we're trying to, yeah, we're going to pit ourselves against larger councils trying to get that investment sooner. Yeah, I can't see how that's going to benefit Waipa. In the document, there are references to the economic regulator. They're pretty oblique and ambiguous. To me, it says if you're going to use water, you've got to do it in an economically efficient way. We know that means water meters. We've got water meters. Other councils don't have water meters. Would an entity insist that those meters be put in at the cost of all participants, not just the particular council? We're also really well placed with our climate change reduction, like emissions reductions with our investment in Cambridge wastewater treatment plant. We should be able to get benefits from those emission reductions. We won't get them if we're in a bigger CCO entity. And lastly, I like the idea of us really looking closely at the benefits of keeping waters in-house, not just for the economies of scope and synergies and ways we can save money by working together across like roading and stormwater and that, but also to further that idea of an anchor institution. Yeah, so sorry for the long list, but there's a lot of reasons to say no in my mind at the moment. Thank you.
Thanks, Claire. Lou.
I tend to totally agree with Councillor St Pierre. But the one thing I'd like to raise for everybody was have a look at that joint position on Sam 6. Why don't we have a look at section E and meet the expectations? I have a problem with that. I would rather say we negotiate in good faith. I cannot see us having to meet everybody else's expectations. It's a very, very difficult position to start with, that you've got to meet everyone else's expectations. We operate as a separate entity, as our own territorial authority. I think we can negotiate in good faith rather than meet other people's expectations. But I do support what you're saying. And the other thing I was going to ask was whether it's going to be all these assets are going to be off balance sheet or on balance sheet, because that can make quite a critical difference for all of us here and the ability of what we can borrow and what we can operate under.
Thanks, Lou. Mike.
Thanks, through the mayor. Yeah, interesting. It'd actually be good if everyone around the table gets some views on this, because it's pretty important going forward. I think it's one of our biggest decisions, really. So I see two things. I pick up on Councillor Gower's point and Councillor St Pierre's around why not wait until this government give us some clear direction. It's sort of, that is putting the horse in front of the cart, which sort of makes sense. So I have some sympathy for that, because hopefully they'll give us some direction within these first 100 days. You would hope they've really knocked on about it during the campaign, so you'd think it's sort of at forefront of what they're going to deliver. So I'd be hoping we wouldn't have to wait too long to get some direction from them, which wouldn't hold this process up if this is part of the process too much. The other thing is, finances are one thing, but actually being in control of your own destiny is actually, to me, really important as well. So it's not just this is eventually financially better, whichever comes out of us. It's actually, it has to be way better across a whole lot of factors, not just the finances, because as I sort of scribbled all over my notes, it's actually about, for me, Waipa ratepayers. I'm sorry, others aren't my interest, okay? I didn't get voted in by them. I got voted in by Waipa ratepayers, and they want me to look after the residents of Waipa. Now, some might say it's selfish, and that's fine, but that's my opinion. So it's not just the finances that have to stack up with whatever comes forward of what we go with. It's actually how much control of our destiny do we have, picking up on your point, Councillor Brown. So those are my 2 cents. So at this stage, I'd probably be going Taiho, but I could swing. I'd like to hear the views of some others.
Andrew.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, no, Dale Marie and then Andrew. I did catch Dale's eye just before. My apologies.
Kia ora anō. I'd just like to put it on the record that I would prefer option 2 because as I'm reading here, expectation that further participation will be committed to development of a business case. And I take on what everyone else has said. And on the back of watching how this government is trying to arrange itself already in the lengthy time and the way that they're doing it, this here just shows me that we would be entering into what could look like, not what we're committing to have, is what could look like. So for me, as someone who's new to this table and has put her hand up to support this council around how they do iwi engagement and strategy, I think just putting this on the record that, again, this will be another indicator of how we don't like to work with iwi well, when there is, at this stage, I believe, a way forward to just work together, because none of us know what that looks like, but having a commitment to work together is just working together. Finer detail, of course, is always going to drop from central government. And I'd just like to make the point that I've heard in this house how we don't wait for central government on certain issues, but we're about to wait for this. And this is only about committing to working together, as far as I can see. Finer detail will come when the government is settled and everything does come out. And I still think we have an opportunity to make sure that our positioning is very bespoke and very about us, where we could determine that in this relationship. So that's all I want to say. Tēnā tātou.
Kia ora, Dale. Andrew.
Yeah, pretty much what she said.
Thank you. That was short and sweet. Who else hasn't spoken? Philip. You're fine. Liz, do you want to?
Yeah, look, this is I guess a really important topic, and I think that we have taken, I guess, a long time to kind of weave our way through, and we haven't been able to steer the ship really at all because it's simply been out of our control. I am probably sitting. Well, I don't want to waste any more resource. For many years, I've sat around this table and it feels like we have not wasted, but we have had many reports and we have had a lot of information provided. And I just don't want to see any more ratepayer money spent on this until we fully understand what the central government is likely to deliver or suggest. There are numerous councils all waiting. I think they understand the pressures that all councils are under with their LTPs, and of course this is sitting in limbo. So I'd be quite keen just to wait until we would return back in February and to see what the lay of the land is then.
Thanks, Liz. And Mike, did you want to add anything? Monty, yeah.
Look, I don't have a firm view on this. Feel at some disadvantage having not been in the last triennium. The rest of you are much better versed in this than me. But what's presented in front of me, I'm finding it hard to come to a firm view. It's easy to agree with an awful lot of what's been said, which makes me sound like a fence sitter, which I'm generally not. But probably on balance, that the wait a little bit longer solution proposed by Councillor Stalwart probably works for me, but yeah, I don't have a firm view.
Okay, thanks, Monty. Roger, did you have something?
Sorry to ask for a point of clarification from Gary. Is there any time urgency in this decision, or is it possible to reconsider this paper in the new year when we have that government direction, or will it then be too late?
So, Roger, this is some speculation from me because I haven't seen what the government's policy position is. You have had, well, this council has had 4 different reports over a number of years, starting with Cranley, Morrison Lowe, McCready Winder, and more recently the figures by DIA that will indicate to you that scale will deliver more cost-effective water services and mitigate considerable risk. And so the question is then, what form should that take? So have we got time? There is urgency on behalf of quite a few councils, a lot of the metros, and a lot of the rural areas, and some of who are absolutely struggling to deliver the water services they need. So across the country, there is some urgency to consider this. What does that mean for Waipa? If we're to go into an entity like this, we need to find one that delivers a scale that is best for Waipa ratepayers. So my advice to you is that if the case is proven, it will take quite a bit of time for us to negotiate with those other councils, things like shareholding arrangements. Do you have harmonisation of prices? Are water meters installed? All of those sorts of things. That takes a great deal of time. So my view is that, yes, there is some urgency because it's going to take you, a considerable journey to land the best deal for Waipa ratepayers.
Thanks, Gary. Andrew, did you want to add something?
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to further my comments, I guess. First of all, I'd just like to say, Mike, I totally agree with your comment in regard to what is best for Waipa ratepayers. That's got to be our bottom line. That's why we're sitting around this table. So to me, that is a given. But Monty's comments take me back to the last triennium where a previous, now retired councillor, Hazel Barnes, asked this table, tell me in one sentence why we should go ahead with the Three Waters proposal that DIA had put in front of us. And I went away and thought about that. And I came back with 3 words. The numbers are compelling. And the numbers presented to us very simply were compelling. And when we had a visit from reps of the DIA, one of the things I questioned them on was, has this been stress tested? This assumption is 20% that way, 20% that way, all that. And I was assured that it had been stress tested and was still compelling. So, that's why I think we should go ahead with this. I'm with Liz. I don't want to see heaps of staff resources pumped into it, but I do want to see us positioned where we can act quicker rather than later. So, I'm definitely for.
Thanks for that, Andrew. Dawn, did you want to add something? And perhaps you could clarify for us how this work, our share of this work, if we were to commence it, might be funded.
Cool, thanks, Your Worship. I thought it was worthwhile in terms of the question around government direction, in terms of, if you'll indulge me, I'll just read from the National Plan for Local Water Done Well that they released pre-election. But certainly it's clear in terms of the 100-day repealing of the current legislation, but it goes on to say, repealing Labor's flawed plan is not enough. The status quo is unacceptable. Change is needed. National will replace Labor's Three Water legislation with a new approach that keeps community ownership and delivers high quality services while ensuring there is sufficient investment in water, wastewater and stormwater infrastructure. And they're looking for councils within a year of repealing the Water Services Entities Act. Councils will need to deliver a plan for how they will transition their water services to a new model that meets water quality and infrastructure investment rules while being financially sustainable in the long term. So whilst, yes, there is a coalition and an agreement that is silent, particularly in terms of that detail, that was certainly what the national government were indicating prior. With respect to funding of the work, Waipa has received water transition funding that has not been fully expended as yet, and we would look to be utilising those unspent funds in terms of supporting the business case. We don't see it being as an onerous investment. We believe that we have people here on staff who have been involved in that previous work, and that they can help support that business case rather than it being a significant investment in an external party to do that work. And we can also tap into the work already done through the DIA in terms of the financial models that they've used, and then bringing in the LTP information that people are now looking at, including in their 2024 long-term plans. So it should not be an impost on the ratepayer to be able to participate in this work.
Thanks for that, Dawn. Look, we're in a conundrum here, aren't we, in this water space for a lot of reasons. And we've tried the 6 years, the CCO option with our neighbours to the north. And for whatever reason, we couldn't pull it off either on an asset owning and non-asset owning basis. And then we moved into the area of more mandated change from central government, which probably didn't find as much favour as potentially the original CCO by choice may have. To my mind, we're back to that beginning point again. And I struggle with not accepting the previously understood notion that the case for change had been made out, as Dawn has kind of highlighted in terms of reading the National Party's policy there. And it just reiterates Andrew's actual 4 words, not 3, that the numbers stack up. Yeah, yeah, the numbers stack up, unless you hyphenate stack up. But anyway, I digress. Look, there's been a body of work done, as we know, reports ad nauseum. The DIA undertook a significant amount of work. Some of that was sort of questionable in terms of numbers they were using. We're at a point now where we cannot hide. Remember the fact that every 7 years infrastructure cost doubles right now. And so whilst we have had really sound investment in the past, there will become a time where we need to be a larger entity in order to potentially address some of the larger issues we might have to face going forward. I don't hold much confidence in the notion that let's wait for a government, because this work can be undertaken contemporaneous with that, and I don't think it's going to be any great earth-shattering proposal that they come out that we won't already have some familiarity with. Chances are it'll be a lot like C4LD model. So I don't think that that's a reason to continue to sit on our hands and do nothing. I'm really comfortable with proceeding with these first steps, because I think we need updated information, and many of the things that we're talking about, the questions that you've raised, will be addressed by that work. So I just think we need to be in a position where we have a business case that we can then, after we see the numbers, see how it stack up, then we start jockeying for position and working out how this is going to look going forward. That's the political discussion. For now, I think we need the economical, financial data and evidence around which to base our decision going forward. That's kind of my view. I would struggle to disagree with anything in paragraph 6 of the joint position document. So look, I just think this body of work will enable us and inform us in terms of making decisions going forward. And without it, I think it would be somewhat knee-jerk and shadow boxing. Let me just skim through some of the notes I made here. Additionally, this potentially could be a model greater than the Cranley, Morrison, Lowe and McCready Winder work. So that has to take into account all of increases in size, and again be informed with that LTP planned works by the potential parties involved. So yeah, look, I think we have to do this, as Gary had noted, that we must find scale that works for Waipawa District Council. We can't find that without this piece of work, and it's not committing us to it entirely. And so that's kind of my view around it, very haphazardly, having listened to you all talk. I've sort of whipped around the room. Dale, Roger, myself and Andrew have all expressed a willingness to proceed on that basis. Is there anybody that wants to add further comments.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, just a clarification. This is about two waters, which Gary stated, but in that, you know, and it's a coalition, it's not national anymore, but I understand the intent of the document you read, Dawn. That still states around three waters, doesn't it? The intent, it still talks about three waters in that document you just read, or that paragraph.
It does.
Yeah. So, I mean, these guys, it's going to be three waters. So why what we're doing, if you're going to do it, still chasing down three waters? Because then I'm sorry, I do think we're sort of wasting our time here, but it's either all in or it's not 2/3 in. So I just want some clarification. If that's the intent, why aren't we chasing the hard bit as well? Because they want us to do all of it, it sounds like.
Through you,
Lou and
through
then
the
Chair.
chair, I just want to raise the point that the recommendation that we're going to move goes down and says, do we endorse section 6, all right, or do we not endorse it? Now, I raised that issue about expectation. The expectation of other examples might be that we have to subsidise their water meters. That's why I said we would negotiate in good faith. Now, I think that that has to be included into that, because we don't want to go down a path where we are committing ourselves to having meeting other people's expectations. And I think that's a vital issue in that joint committee. I know it was the last point, but we are actually either endorsing it or not. So I do think we want to still consider that issue.
So I wouldn't want an answer to my question as well, sorry, just before that, of, you know, the 2 rather than the 3.
Through you, Madam Chair. Certainly in terms of very preliminary discussions with some of the other group managers across the region who are looking to possibly support this piece of work, the issue of stormwater is one that is not as clear. And so in terms of this financial case, it was seen as if it's compelling for water and wastewater, then we can probably work through in terms of what then is the most appropriate model for managing stormwater. In terms of the current legislation where it was going to be fully managed by an entity, maybe there are alternatives that were explored through the CCO discussion, through the earlier models that Waipa participated in, where it was water and wastewater were delivered through the entity, but then stormwater was looked at as a level of service and MOU agreement that could be entered into in terms of delivering those services. So that was the very preliminary thinking in terms of, as I say, look for the compelling in water and wastewater, and then what's an appropriate mechanism for delivering more efficient water, stormwater services? Is that to remain with council or possibly delivered through the entity by an MOU type agreement?
So listening to that, Dawn, the most difficult part of us is the stormwater.
It's
Yes.
extremely challenging in
Right.
terms of its connectedness across the organisation, in terms of our planning for growth, our delivery of recreational services, the dual purpose use, but also, I guess we're not fully cognizant of some of the impacts as we are moving through our global stormwater discharge consent and meeting those conditions, and what the cost of meeting those conditions is in terms of the expectations coming from our regulators around both the quality of the discharge, but how levels of enforcement are undertaken around management of stormwater. So it's an area of emerging risk and emerging cost.
Yeah. So I'm just going to keep on about this, because if that's the most difficult part, which sounds super complex, and Gary sort of alluding to the fact of there's time pressures, and at the end of the day, the government are going to give us X amount of time to come up with a model and a solution, then I still come back to, why isn't this in there? If this is going to be the most difficult part, why would we start this part in March? Why wouldn't we start this straight away with all the rest of it? It's just, can't quite get my head around this, but if this is the most complex, but you surely want the most time, or is it we don't want to do it because it's just too hard? But it might be too hard, but the government going to tell us to do it. What's, head in the sand, I'm not sure is a great solution.
Dawn. I guess there's a couple of facets. Number one is that the DIA have done work in this space in terms of it. They've provided each council with a tool that helps understand in terms of what those future responsibilities were under the existing model. The challenge being in terms of the repealing of the legislation, the Water Services Act, the Water Services Entities Act, is that within there were provisions for that future management of stormwater. If that is repealed, then our ability to move services across to another entity for the management of stormwater is problematic. So that would be the component. Whereas, as I say, for water and wastewater, we can move through fairly confidently.
Thanks, Dawn. Andrew, then Roger, then Claire.
Just very quickly, I've been thinking about Lou's point, and while it is valid, I think the corollary
I like that word.
to his point is that our expectations are expected to be met also.
Yeah, to a degree.
No, they are expected to be met.
No, good point. I was thinking that too, reading it, because that is a forum is of the view that any aggregation of councils' water services needs to achieve the following outcomes, meet the expectation of key partners. So that's us as well.
Yeah.
It's part of that, we're all in this together kind of thing. Roger.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. And just reflecting on what all the discussion is, you mentioned that I was in favour of going down this recommended track. I think with the discussion, it has actually shown that we're trying to make a decision without having sufficient information in front of us. And therefore, I think our wisest decision would be to defer our decision until we've got more information on the table on which to make that decision. So I actually would be more in favour of the wait until we get more direction from central government.
Claire.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I just appreciate it, the chance to make some further comment based on your comments, Susan, around the assumption that Waipa couldn't possibly manage the water services in the long term. I haven't seen any information to confirm or deny that. And like Roger, I think we need more information before we can come to that conclusion. And that's really important, actually, because earlier I signaled that I was really uncomfortable that letting this business case be developed, there's a strong presumption already that the entity would need to have the assets moved off the books of our councils. Waipa is not in that situation, and therefore a possible model for us is a third party to manage our assets, because it has been signalled that staffing, access to skilled people that could run it is something that we've got to be really mindful of. So we do know that there are organisations that will manage water services in New Zealand. Veolia is one. They do it on behalf of Watercare in Auckland, and they get really good results. Because the design of the business case is looking at how assets are managed as a standalone entity, that model wouldn't even be looked at. So I would seek an assurance, if this work was done, that models that are applicable to councils that can look after their assets would actually be one of the options as was explored. I really doubt that would happen, okay? And another weakness of the previous business cases or reports done was they focused on capital. They didn't look at the operational side of things. And that's really complex. And I think it also, I don't know about, you mentioned stress testing, Andrew, and things like that. I think it's really difficult to sort of, get into the granular detail of the impacts if those activities were managed by a separate organisation to council itself. Would there be duplication? Would there be additional costs and things like that? The coordination itself, that's something that's signalled in the problem field reading that I've done. That's incredibly complex and takes a lot of time and money as well. So I'm still sitting with preferring to wait, needing a lot more information before we commit to, a line of action. Thank you.
Okay, all right. So the impression I'm getting from the room is that we're comfortable obviously to receive Dawn's report. There's, I haven't really got a clear idea of whether people are happy with B, which is endorsing that section 6. Obviously, other than Lou has expressed a dis-ease with that. Nobody else has really jumped up and said, I'm not comfortable with that position, or am I reading the room wrong? Because the reality is that on paragraph C, I guess we make the decision whether we want to be in or out. I'm really a little bit confused as to what people's expectation are. Are you just wanting to put this on hold and just revisit in the new and continue to kick the can down the road? Okay, so then we receive the report and we amend B and C to direct staff to bring this matter back to February 2024 council. Okay. So I'm sorry. Sorry, Gary.
So
hold on.
you're anticipating in February that we will have a clear steer from the government?
Well, I hope so.
Well, the first
100 days, count 100 days, people.
No, what we've asked for is to bring it back. If there's not a clear steer, we make another decision as councillors.
What's your understanding around this in terms of our involvement?
So, Dawn, my understanding is there's a working group that we've got 3 mayors overseeing, and we're looking for an iwi perspective on whether they want to be involved in an oversight group for this. Don McLeod is working with other councils across the region to look at whether the business model stacks up for an entity servicing the Waikato. Critically, to make that a cost-effective exercise, the mayor's chairs have resolved to write to the minister indicating that we're interested to do this work and can we have access to all of the DIA data. So that's why we're saying, can you just note that we're doing this business case to see, have you got a case to argue or not? But the critical question you're being asked to consider today is whether you support section 6 in the mayor's chair's forum. So we were just asking you to note that staff are doing this exercise so that we can advise you on whether or not this is the best course to follow.
That provides us with a bit more clarity, I think.
Yeah. And that being the case, I mean, we need to go ahead.
Yeah.
So, happy to move.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. Do I have a seconder? Dale Marie? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against?
Yeah.
Show of hands.
Can you put your hands up?
So the recommendation is lost.
Can you put your hands up, please? While I just...
Stick your hands in the air. No, I was 4.
Mhm.
That's Councillor Brown.
The whole recommendation, I should probably put them separately. No, maybe put them separately because we still have to receive the report and Is that fine? Joe, can I just get some clarification from governance now in terms of that whole recommendation was lost? Does somebody have to put an alternative recommendation? A, that we received the report, B, does not endorse section 6, and then C, notes?
Yeah, I would look to see if there's someone that's willing to move the alternative solution.
Okay. Do I have somebody who's willing to move the alternative resolution, being that we received Dawn's report, that we don't endorse section 6, and that that section C is noted? So Mike Pettit will move that and Claire will second that. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? That's me, against.
Please record.
And I'll record too.
Right.
So that's Dale, Monty, Bruce, myself and Andrew all want to be recorded against. Geez, you're working. for your-
7-4.
All those forms.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do a point of order.
May I have a
just
point
like
of
to
order?
I'd just like to put a point of order across
I-
actually, and I'd just like to make mention that this is an indicator and this will hinder us with our iwi relations. Tēnā tātou.
Madam
Yeah.
Chair, can I raise a point of order? I
Roger.
actually made a formal motion that the matter lie on the table, and it was seconded by Lou, but it was not put to the vote.
I didn't hear that. I'm sorry, Roger.
I heard it was about lying on the table, the report lying on the table until February.
I would prefer that recommendation as well.
Not until February, but until we have a clear indication of what's happening. Because I would have preferred Roger's one too, actually, because he did mention it.
Joe, yeah, I was talking to Gary at the time, I think. I didn't catch it. So what do we do in that situation?
Let's take a 5-minute recess. Yeah. Sorry, Mayor Susan, let's take a
So I just suggest we adjourn the meeting
Yeah.
just for 5 minutes for clarification in terms of the procedural matters around Welcome back, everybody. We've just had the opportunity to address issues in terms of procedure around the recommendation put and lost, a further amended recommendation put and passed in the absence of hearing an earlier suggestion that the matter lie on the table. So I shall pass the reins over to Joe to explain the position in terms of procedure from this point on in terms of revocation.
In terms of if the meeting does want to revoke an earlier recommendation that has passed, there is provision to do that in clause 24.5 of standing orders. If you wish to do that, an appropriate motion would be that council agrees to revoke the resolution passed in relation to the draft Waikato position statement. That will need a vote of 9 to pass in order for that resolution to be revoked. Otherwise, it will fail and the original resolution will stand.
So Mike will move that resolution. Roger will second that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Dalmarie. So that gives the percentage we require to revoke. So now are we going to put a new motion? Could I ask you to read that one out,
That
please?
would be, in terms of what you have in your report, would be recommendation A, which is still stands because you still need to receive Dawn Ingall's report. And then you could bring a recommendation C up to make that the new recommendation B. And then you would have a new C that says the endorsement of the draft position in terms of reference lay on the table and direct staff to bring the matter back to council once the government's position is known.
Roger will move that and Lou will second that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? I'm against. So is Andrew and so is Dale. But that's all right.
And you want that recorded in the minutes?
Yes, please. Right. So the motion, the amended recommendation passes and we shall see that matter again in the new year once government's position is understood. Moving on then to our next item on our agenda, tab 9, which is updates to council delegations in November. Diana, this is one of yours. Good morning. Thank you for your patience. Yeah. Oh, and just saying, in the future, if anybody wants to put a motion out of sequence, make sure I hear it. And if another one is put subsequently, that's the opportune time to say, Madam Chair or whomever, could you please address my earlier one? Otherwise we could trip up in our knickers, I think is the official local government speak. So anyway, over to you, Dana.
Thank you, Your Worship. Tēnā koutou. The purpose of my report is to seek council approval for delegations. I'll take the report as read, but I'm seeking approval for delegations to the Chief Executive for functions relating to 2 newly made bylaws, the Dog Control Bylaw and the Public Places Bylaw, and then a minor update to the note relating to the appointment of hearing commissioners, just to make it clear on the basis that they are appointed. I'm very happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Diana. It's pretty straightforward. Anybody have any questions? No?
I was happy to move.
Oh. Liz will move. Dale will second. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Short and sweet. Look at that. Our next item is the appointment of Future-Proof Hearings Subcommittee. Joe. This is one of yours, appearing on page 262 of our agendas.
Thank you. First of all, just want to say apologies. There was an issue with the appendix that wasn't included in the report. You ended up with 2 reports rather than the terms of reference for the subcommittee. But other than that, hopefully the report is fairly straightforward in terms of making the appointments that we have recommended it as Waipa's representatives. We're proposing Councillor Stolwick with Mayor O'Regan as alternate.
Okay, Mike
Can-
Pettit will move it and, oh, did you
No,
have a
can I
comment?
just have a point of clarification?
Yes, Roger.
Will the appendix appear in the minutes of the meeting? And is it possible that we could just view the appendix on the screen? So we've got the full info on the paper before we vote on it. I've got no problem with voting on it. I just think that
The appendix is in your emails this morning?
it's not in the,
No, because
Please.
if I put it in diligent and you lose your note, so I emailed it around this morning.
okay.
So you do have that, and we can put it as a supplement on the website, and that of course will be on the regional council website as well. Yeah.
So will it appear in the minutes of the meeting?
We attach it as tabled if
I don't think you can,
It's-
you can't. 'Cause it's
we've
not
not
part of
really
the
received it.
agenda.
I think the report, in terms of on the face of it, it as stands, we will certainly make sure that the terms of reference go up to the next to the agenda on the website. In terms of councillors, you have all had that updated appendix this morning.
Unless
Happy.
you wanted to be detailed enough, Roger, to add an extra recommendation noting that the terms of reference were separated separately.
Yep.
Did you want that to be added?
Oh, I think it would,
Okay, so we have a recommendation there that Mike was suggesting he may move, but can I suggest, Mike, that there be an additional D after A, B, C and D, noting that the terms of reference were circulated separately.
if Mike's happy with that change to the motion, I'm
And
quite happy.
Claire is happy
I'm
with
happy to
seconding
second it.
that.
Yeah.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Liz. Next item is council submission on the emergency management bill. David Topman and Wayne, nice to see you both.
We've got, yeah, there we go, sorry. Atamare, Your Worship, good morning. This is take it as read report 2, please. And like Joe, unfortunately, there was an attachment to the submission which was attached to the report. The attached submission of the group's submission was not attached. It's been emailed this morning, and I think we need to follow a similar procedure and get it included in the minutes. Thank you. Our submission is simply to note our support for the group's submission. The key points in that one were points we discussed at the workshop on the 10th of October when we talked about the emergency management bill. So there shouldn't be any surprises in the group submission. It was also circulated as a draft to elected members through Friday mail out. I think it was the 27th of October. Any questions?
Thank you for that, David.
Just following on, thanks, David. Just following on, and good morning, everybody. So I've been involved with the process in terms of being on the subcommittee, submission subcommittee at the group level, which had oversight in the drafting of the submission at the group level. And of course, Councillor Lou Brown has been involved from a joint committee side, representing Waipa District Council and the approval of the submission that was lodged to government. So we've had input that way and approval processes that way. So just confirming that. Thank you.
Thanks, Wayne. Yeah, obviously some gremlins got in the system on this agenda, but anyway, Lou.
I'm formally happy to move that. Why not?
And Dale will second that. Did you have anything to add? Or yeah. So I'll put the motion. All those that are we going to have the amended motion?
Yeah, add that on.
Okay, so the recommendation. Oh, I've already moved across one. Sorry, appearing on page. So slow. 271 should be, we received your report, and then perhaps an additional statement that noting that the that the submission referenced as being attached in our submission being the Local Government New Zealand submission was circulated separately.
So
we get
Madam
all that?
Chair, that's 271 of your papers, but everyone else will be 274, because somehow the first 3 pages dropped off. yours.
So we've had, the gremlins got into my diligent. I have lost my agenda page. I've done those anyway. Whole photo, so this was a little bit chaotic here. I've got these paper versions and all sorts. So the substance is noted though, in terms of that additional circulation of the submission separately. So Lou moved it, Dale seconded that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Oh, it's just the agenda page in the front. Yeah, it was there this morning, but it's disappeared now. And I still have some pages missing. So there are some little gremlins. Okay. Definitely time for a bit of a break. But before we go into morning tea break, we have a resolution to exclude the public. Andrew will move that. Liz will second that. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against?